in a forum with no pressure to test. It's got to be
Happy
fun.
Happy Father's Day, everybody.
Yeah, happy Father's
Happy,
Day.
yeah, happy Father's Day.
I don't know where Dennis is, so if it's like usual, he'll pop in at the last minute. But we're gonna go ahead and just roll, man. How is everybody?
Doing
Been
good.
good. I feel like I haven't seen you guys in forever.
It's been a minute. Are you gonna be at the MWSA coming up this month for the
On the
14th? The
26th?
14th. Yeah, I think it's 26th. The 14th MWSA.
That's the
I
plan.
sure hope so. I hope so.
Brad, what'd you say?
That's the plan.
That's the
I
plan.
definitely want to try and go to that. I got to look at my on-call schedule. I think I'm on call that day, but I'm gonna have to. I can work it around and try to trade days with somebody and try to be there
Yeah.
because I really want to meet Brother Park.
Oh yeah, Brother Park is awesome. That's my main attraction, just to go see him. So,
Yeah,
well, I'll bump into you guys there if you're there. It's gonna be a
great.
good time. Anything exciting going on this week?
Uh, Not for me really. Just work.
Brad,
You know,
when's your installation?
on the 13th of July. Yeah.
Got you. Trenton, you get an office?
Yes, sir. I got Tyler.
Oh, cool, man. Is that your? Did you have an office this year?
No, well, I mean, yes, but in chapter council and commandery,
Mm,
not in Blue Lodge.
got you. Well, that's exciting. Devin, Jeff, y'all got anything going on? Any offices coming up? Do what, Devin? Came in choppy. I
I
can't.
got.
Do what?
I was say I don't hear anything.
Oh, I thought you said something. Oh well. Cool.
Our lodge had its craft school today, and I read through my long form entered apprentice proficiency by memory. So that was exciting, and I'll get it presented in lodge at the next meeting at the end of this month, and get on the way to fellowcraft.
That's awesome, man. What state did you say you were in?
Kansas.
Kansas. How many sections does the EA have?
What do you mean sections?
So here in Texas, we have it broke down into 3 sections for the entered apprentice memory work. I didn't know if y'all had it the same way or what in Kansas.
Yeah, basically it's question and answer where we walk through the entire initiation ceremony, and then do the working tool monitorial,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's several questions members can ask you out of our little EA pamphlet.
Got you. I
Yeah.
see. Cool. Yeah, I've always been interested in how other states do their memory work. I'm told Texas has a lot, but I mean, I'm told a lot of things, right? So who really knows?
No, we have a
I
member
know y'all's
who's
master
from
proficiency
Texas.
is more than Jersey. That's for sure.
You said Jersey has more.
No, Texas's master proficiency was way more than what I had to do in Jersey.
I see. Yeah, I always hear it was the. Okay, it says Dennis is joining, but I don't see Dennis. I got an email said he joined. He'll show up. No, I always hear it's the EA that we have. That's much longer. Where you at, man?
Right Worshipful Stewart is in the chat.
Oh,
He asked if I had done anything fun yesterday, and I was like, yes, I did have a good time yesterday. Right Worshipful Stewart had about a forum that lasted about 8 hours, chock full of all kinds of interesting conversations and education. It was really good. Um, we went down the road of balloting, and that sparked a lot of interesting conversation.
about balloting.
Believe it or not.
Yeah. What was? What can you... Hold on, Dennis is messaging me.
Okay. There's another guy in chat. His name is JB808. Said he is excited. He put in his petition yesterday, and he's been listening to the podcast, which helped him want to make that step.
Awesome. That is always exciting to hear. I gotta resend this to Dennis. Poor old guy. Poor kid. I don't think I sent him the old
Poor
one.
Gen Xer.
I know, right? We'll get it figured out. He's confused. He's lost and scared. Like a little puppy. So, about balloting, what about that did you find really interesting?
Well, so when we open up to start a ballot, there's a lot of information that's there to read or whatever and talk about before you even start balloting. But as soon as that gavel drops, there's to be no conversation after that, no talking until the ballot is over.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an interesting question about having a three, like when you're voting on a new initiate to receive the degrees. Well, if all three of the investigations were favorable, but there is a protest that is known.
Mm-hmm.
When is that supposed to be brought up? And I think the question, the answer is before that first gavel is dropped. But if that said brother that has a protest that's not hearsay but personal experience, basically he has to, and he can't be there. He can let the worshipful master know, but when can the worshipful master bring that up? It was an interesting conversation. I don't think we ever really came up with a good answer.
Okay. I always like the forums. I mean, that's exactly what they are. I think a lot of people just go and expect to be fed information, and there are parts where that happens, right? But there's a lot of dialogue, and there's a lot of value in it. Granted, some people like to hear themselves talk, right? And so you always have that, like they're holding everybody hostage, just like. But all the ones I attended, Cody did a really good job of keeping it on track, and there was still conversation. We were still having back and forth. But
Yeah.
hey, I'm gonna y'all talk. I'm gonna mute real quick and call this old guy right here, see what his problem is.
Hey, Brad, did you see that painting that I shared in Texas Masonry?
I did. The trestle board painting that you had commissioned for your friend to paint.
Yeah, I talked to him about it, and I think we're gonna get prints made, and then I'm gonna sell them. Half the money will go to him, and then the other half will be split between Billy Moss and Durant 45 as a fundraiser.
That's great. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he was totally down for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nice. So is he a Mason or?
No, his grandfather was. So pretty much what I did with the EA tracing board, I had a girl that was a friend that I commissioned to do the EA one, and I just gave her 3 off of Google and was like, look at these and do your best rendition. So he pretty much did the same thing. He looked at 3 or 4 of them and did his own version.
Hey, look who's with us!
Welcome in.
Oh, you're wearing a dad shirt today? I got one too. It's hold on.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, buddy,
Yep.
look at that.
You don't deserve that one. Well, yeah, I guess that one looks like the one from Spaceballs. So yeah,
Spaceball.
you do deserve that one. It's got the big head with the little body.
Man, I need to rewatch that one.
Yeah,
What?
it's been a long time.
That part where they're
You never seen Spaceballs?
That's a classic, man. You got to go watch that.
No way.
Yes, yes.
that
Tonight
part-
we were watching Rango. That's why I was a little bit late. I had to
the
wait for the water.
Johnny Depp one with the lizard.
Yeah,
That's a funny one.
but I was. It wouldn't have mattered because I was sent the wrong links twice, and I finally got the right one on the thrice attempt.
Sabotage.
Mhm.
What's up, the Daniel? The Dutton?
Hello.
So, what did everybody else do this weekend? I did I worked in a reunion this weekend, and it was very good and very cool. We had a great time.
You did. That's cool. Brad was talking about a little bit ago. He was talking about the forum, the super forum that he went to on Saturday.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
That was there are some questions about that in the chat. Oh, that's what we were talking about when I called Dennis. But so I thought a protest was to be presented when the ballot was read. That's what David Lawson is saying.
Do what?
We were talking about protests.
When the protest is supposed to be done?
Uh-huh. So
The protest, if it's done after the are you talking about protesting the ballot, or are you talking about
Yeah.
protesting the person?
So, there's a lot of protesting of people going around. Oh, protesting the person?
Okay, so if
Yeah,
it's
so
the person,
I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah.
yeah, so if
So
it's the person, then you have to do it in private. You go up to the worshipful master and you tell him in his ear, and then he decides what's going to happen with it. Otherwise, you're supposed to give any information to the investigation committee before they present. That way, and with giving them enough time to just talk about it amongst themselves, being able to meet and talk about it again amongst themselves to make a decision on if they're going to bring it to the lodge or not.
So what do you mean by protesting the ballot? What is that?
Well, you can a worshipful master, if he doesn't like a ballot, he can make a ballot go all night until midnight, and then he has to stop. But he can continue to do ballot after ballot until he wears the people down into finally going the way that he wants it to. But the master has that prerogative.
Well, we're strictly talking about electing people to receive degrees, like the ballot.
Yeah.
We're not talking about
Yeah.
any vote.
That's for degrees, not for voting for people into the line or anything like that.
Understood.
So this I think was the question. So we have a ballot. All three are reported favorable, but there is a member or a person that called the worshipful master before lodge, and he couldn't show up. And he had a legitimate protest on a brother or a person to receive the degrees, but he couldn't show up. So when does the master divulge that information? Is it after the ballot or before the gavel drops, or
The master should have talked to the investigation committee ahead of time before lodge opened, so that they could talk about it and decide if they were going to still go forward with a favorable or not. That would be the proper way to do that, not to bring it up in the middle of lodge. And he definitely doesn't bring up what the problem is, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
He just says that there's an issue, we can't do the ballot tonight or whatever. We'll have to get this resolved before we can move forward.
So does a protest equate to a blackball, or what is the equivalent for that?
No, there's no blackball if they're not there. I mean, they have to be there to vote. They can't change a vote.
So what is
they can't.
What is a protest? What is the purpose of that then?
the protest is like I said, they can go to the worshipful master and tell them something if they're there in lodge. They can, and they can call them if they're not able to be there. But it's strictly up to the master, to what value he puts on that protest.
Okay. All right. Cody says Cody's with us, by the way. He's in chat. He says,
"Hey, he's gonna make me look stupid now."
He says a protest is exactly equivalent to a black ball. It only counts if the protesting brother is not there for the ballot. Okay, I can see
it does count as a black ball. I didn't think it did.
Yeah, he says it is exactly. So I suppose the reason you need protest is if you want to cast a vote, but you're not going to be there.
Right.
Okay. Like if you want to cast there's no white. There's no.
So it's okay.
Positive
So
equivalent.
I'm talking about a different kind of scenario.
Got you.
Because I'm talking about if there's an issue that they wanted to bring up to the investigation committee or a cause that they didn't, think that they should even be voted on or whatever.
So let's go back to what Brad was talking about earlier, because it sounded like, and this was like just before you got in, so I'm sorry, like you don't, but he was saying that it was discussed in a forum, but it wasn't necessarily decided. It was like a conversation they were having at the forum when to share the protest.
Before
the vote?
Yes, before lodge.
It seems like that could skew the vote.
They're not supposed to share it with everybody. They're only supposed to share it with the master.
Yeah, but I'm saying, so the master, I'm talking about the master. Like, when should the master share that there was a protest?
That would have to be at the vote, I would think.
When you say at the vote, I'm just trying to get clarification.
Well, if there's if it equates to a black ball, then it would happen during the vote.
So, like when you're deciding if it's favorable, or would you do that before everybody goes up and votes?
I don't know. Me personally, I think it would have to be when you're deciding if it's favorable, because then you're skewing the votes by telling people that that's why if somebody's there and protesting, they're supposed to do it in private with the master.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to do it in front of everybody.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. Because if you shared it before everybody voted, then everyone's going to be like, well, maybe I should be doing that too. Cody says, he's in the chat, if the guy being balloted on gets 2 black cubes and the worship master receives a protest from a brother who will not be there for the ballot, the worship master announces that the petitioner is not elected due to 2 black cubes and 1 protest. This happens at the announcement at the end.
Right.
And that makes sense. Because really, if there's 3 cubes to keep you out anyway, 1 protest wouldn't make a difference unless you already have 2 black cubes.
Exactly. Right. But it would, and from what I understand, the master would call the officers to the east and discuss it with them and tell them what's going to happen, and then they go back to their seats, if I remember right.
I'll tell you, having Cody in the chat is just as informational as going to a forum. Just
right,
because we're having these conversations and he's clarifying it. It's like really helpful.
Yeah. I don't think we got to that point during the forum.
But it doesn't count as a forum.
There was a lot of back and forth, and I think the conversation kind of went round and round a little bit, but it was still good because it really opened my mind and made me think about it.
I feel like I need to insert a disclaimer here due to Cody in the chat right there. Just to clarify, this live stream is by no means a substitute for a forum. They are invaluable, and you need to be sure you go to those. Cody's he's over there like, no!
I'm looking at the laws right now. That's exactly right.
Oh, you saying that's
if there's black balls, that's when you would do the protest.
It just makes sense. If it's not going to affect the vote, like what would it really matter at that point?
Oh man, talking about protests now, there's going to be there's going to be some stuff going on at a lodge that I know of. They're talking about, well, there's a couple of lodges that to have to make some serious decisions real soon, like within a month or two. And I think they've already got the district deputies involved, and they're gonna be deciding on if they're gonna be around any longer, right?
Wow.
But what's crazy is, yeah, and you know what's funny? Well, not so funny.
You talking about the lodge not being around?
There are two lodges that I said needed to go away 2 years ago. And I said they needed to go away a year ago. And I've said that they needed to go away this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to happen finally. But anyways, in one instance, so this really chaps my eye. In fact, I'm going to show up for that meeting when it happens. In one instance, there was a person who put in a petition and was blackballed at one lodge. And after the time period was up, somebody that was a member of both lodges from a different lodge called him and said, "Hey, your time is up. Why don't you petition over here and we'll make you a Mason?" And they made him a Mason. So now this one that blackballed doesn't want this guy in the fraternity, and for very good reason, I'm saying. Which is why I'll be there. So by time it's time for him to turn in his work, that other lodge will be gone and people will be in this sister lodge, right? Hence that person will be in that lodge as well. So it'll be the fate of that lodge as to if he goes forward or not, or even continues in Mason.
Wow.
So I will definitely be there and help make sure that does not happen, that he does not get to continue forward, because he was made not to be a Mason for a very good reason, and something I won't talk about online, but I can assure you, if I can help it, that person is not going to be a Mason much longer.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that BS? That somebody would be keeping track of somebody that was blackballed in another lodge and then contact that person and say, "Hey, fill out your petition again over here because we're a dying lodge and we need people and they're dying anyways." And so that person is now a member of the fraternity.
Is the reason that he wasn't brought in known?
Oh, yeah.
So then it really makes you question.
The person that called him is a member of both lodges. He was there when he was blackballed out.
Yeah, so that kind of makes you wonder about the other guy too.
Now the character of that other person. Yes.
Yeah.
What's interesting is I'm writing a paper right now. I'm still got to finish my presentation for Masonicon in New Mexico. And the presentation is upon the book, The Oath I Took. And it has to do with our obligations and who they're to and what they're for, and the fact that not one single word matters if you're somebody of little character, because those oaths will never mean anything.
Yeah.
And this is the perfect explanation of why. And I'm probably going to put it in my presentation. I'll probably start it with that story.
Safe to say that whoever did all that doesn't listen to our stuff. At least not for the right reasons if they do.
I don't think they do.
Yeah, because they wouldn't be doing stuff like that if they were listening to us.
Yeah, in fact, the people that blackballed that person to begin with, I know that they listen to our stuff. In fact, they wouldn't sign the petition because of this.
Good.
That's where that lodge is going, and they're doing great.
Yeah. It's weird how that happens, right?
Yeah,
It, I,
that's just sad on our fraternity, right?
Yeah.
Well, sad on some of the people in our fraternity, not our fraternity, because we have a wonderful fraternity of a lot of good, upstanding men that don't deserve that from some of its members.
no. I was talking to somebody the other day, and really,
I got a hole in my chest.
I know, like,
Oh.
but the to really kind of summarize the whole conversation. Yes, Dennis and I come on here and we share our opinions, but
Dun, dun, dun.
I preface that our opinions have changed widely since we started, and
Oh yeah.
that's because we bring on we don't like strive to create an echo chamber here. We seek out leaders in the fraternity and bring them onto the show, and it just so happens that whenever we bring somebody on and they're talking about what they do at their lodge that makes it successful, there is a clear, defined pattern for success. And if a lodge follows these patterns, they can emulate that. There's also a clear, defined pattern for mediocrity in the fraternity, and that's what 99% of the lodges are doing. If you want to if you want to excel, you have to look at what these successful lodges are doing and follow these practices. If you continue to do what every other lodge in your district is doing, then you can't complain about being as successful as every other lodge in your district. And the reason I bring that up is because you're talking about how important it is for us to be more diligent about who we let in and things like this. This is something that successful lodges do. This is something a successful fraternity has to do. It's not just the Dennis and Justin podcast where we just talk about our ideas. These are from tried and true research, from talking to successful people. I'm just saying, you could say it's just two guys talking. That's just their opinion. You could also say, well, we're not this lodge, we're not that lodge. The only thing that really separates this lodge and that lodge is the culture and how you implement things.
Right. Well, and we've talked about that a lot, and my views have changed that it's okay that we have different cultures in our lodges. We need it. It requires it so that everybody has a place to go, because most lodges aren't going to be completely well-rounded lodges, but they are going to have a couple of things, 2, maybe 3 things that they're really good at. Mm-hmm. And so let's say they're really good at fellowship and they suck at education. Well, if you got the one guy that's got education going on, and he decides to start implementing a little bit of education, they get talking during this fellowship opportunity. Wow, all of a sudden we have education in our lodge. So then it kind of bleeds over and they become better for it. But I do think that lodges need to be defined mm-hmm. as to what their culture is, so that it doesn't create strife of different factions trying to fight back and forth. But you're right. Mm-hmm. I had a completely different attitude 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And in fact, up until we had that discussion with Robert Park, I still was pretty staunch on drilling it home, education. Mm-hmm. But now I'm able to understand that, yeah, maybe we do need different cultures to be successful, especially if we look at what happens in England and other jurisdictions where they have special lodges. They have niche lodges for people.
Yeah. I'm in huge favor of that too. I think, if you have something that a lodge can immerse itself in, like you're still practicing the 3 pillars of the fraternity, but say, hey, we all really like playing football, do like a football lodge, or we all go to UT Austin, we should do like a UT Austin lodge, or just affiliation lodges, right? You have a common interest, and you're still practicing Freemasonry, but you're bound by this common interest also. And like you say, it's shown to be successful in other countries. I don't know. There's probably reasons we don't do it, but.
And look at the lodges that are attached to colleges and universities. those are generally very successful lodges because it's the fraternal aspect is already there, and they're just building upon that with education as well. In fact, those are generally pretty staunch education lodges,
Yeah.
right? They're usually pretty serious about that. So, or at least having intelligent people in there, not just anybody.
No. Well, it wouldn't. It's not a frat, right? It's a fraternity,
Right.
but
It's not a fraternity,
frat.
but they expect intelligent people, not something I saw this weekend, which I'm not going to discuss right now.
Culture goes a long way. It makes a big difference. Yeah. Just flexing that shirt, man.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just
I
saying.
just wanted to jump in real quick and say, I've been listening to the audiobook of Simon Sinek's, Start With Why.
Mhm.
And it really is about that feeling that you produced in what we're doing, right? There are those who are going to join Masonry for education. There are those who are going to join it for fellowship. There are those who are going to join it because, whatever their why is. And as you find those different lodges and find those lodges that this is what attracts me to that lodge, right? Like, hey, we have a business meeting that lasts 20 minutes. And then we do education and we do dinner. And, that to me is what is really appealing, right?
Mhm.
Versus let's have a fish fry lodge or whatever. But, and then there are other folks who that's what their important is. That's what's important to them is that fellowship, is that, hey, I want to do some fundraising. I want to do some fish fries. Granted, we don't want to be restaurants, but, that's what's important to them is hanging out and having that opportunity to do that. And I think, that's why you do have these different lodges and why traveling is also so important, right? Because you find out what your Freemasonry is and what it means to you. And then you find like-minded brothers, which again, why this forum is so great to have like-minded brothers who want to talk and want to make the fraternity better.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Brad, did you have something too?
Yeah. So if you don't have the fellowship aspect at your lodge, it's really hard to even know what the culture is if you don't know who your brothers are.
Mm-hmm.
If all you're doing is going to lodge once a month and having a business meeting, that wears you down. Like you're not friends.
Yeah.
Friends and brothers. You're just
Right.
brothers.
I'm on several boards, and we come and we hold a business meeting and we leave. I've been doing it for years. I don't know these people. We go and sit down, we talk about business, and then we leave. And if you do the same thing at your lodge, you're not going to know those people. You could be a 50-year member, but all you do is you come in, sit down for a quick meal, choke down your hot dog, vote on who's going to change the light bulbs, and go home. You don't know these people. You haven't gotten closer to them.
What's even more frustrating and pisses me off is the people that only show up at election day for
Yes.
officers.
Yes.
And they, somebody is going around electioneering, and then all of a sudden you have these 20 people that are showing up that never show up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, dude, are you going to come back and help support this vision of this guy that thinks he's going to run everything because he got you in to stack the vote?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what's going to happen? You're going to come and support this so that I don't have to be a part of this clusterfuck? Oh, whoops.
Whoa.
I just went into we just hit YouTube MA. I'm sorry.
Whenever you go to election night and you start seeing people that you have not seen before, it's time to start getting worried because you know it's going to go down that night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I agree 100%. I agree 100%. That's always been a thing of mine. When you go to elections and you start looking around, it's like, I haven't seen that guy in 2 years. I've never seen this guy before. Yeah. That's, it's going to be dramatic.
There was a lodge that they wanted to put me in as treasurer,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody that we both know that was very instrumental in doing food prep and stuff like that a couple of years ago for OLT.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, he is the treasurer. And that night when they wanted to make me treasurer, all of a sudden there were 10 guys there that I had never seen before at all at that lodge at all. And he won by one vote, and it was because of those 10 guys. Nobody else in the lodge voted for him. It was just those 10 guys that he brought in. That is such bull crap. And they hadn't been back since except for their own funerals.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's a mess. That's a joke.
True.
I do want to.
True stuff.
I'll look back real quick because you're talking about that interview we had with Brother Park. When I'll be frank, when he was talking about the benefits of a balanced lodge, it just shows like just because we talk about things doesn't mean that we are like so one sided we're not going to listen to what you have to say. Because I didn't agree 100% with Park at that time, but then as I gave it time, and you may not have either. I don't know, but I was thinking about it, and he continued talking. It took time, right? But as I think you should hear something. Don't feel as though don't feel threatened by an opposing view, but give it consideration. Because believe me, I hear lots of opposing views, and very few of them make it into my little sanctum where I have my perspective on things, right? But but I really gave what Brother Park said a lot of thought. He's like, I could definitely see the value of what he's saying, and I agree with that. And so I went.
Well, that's
like,
because,
dude, like
go ahead.
I was originally like 100% education. Like everything else falls into place. You just have education. And I was like, no fundraising, nothing like that. And I realized that just because I don't want fundraising doesn't mean that anyone that does want it is less valid. But what it does mean is like what Brother Park said, we have to focus on balance. It goes back to, it's even like if you want to go to like a Kabbalah or Hermeticism, like you have to have this balance. You can't just be so one-sided, so far one way or the other, because then everything's unbalanced. And I was like, you know what? That's good. And in fact, I think you mentioned that we were talking. I don't remember if we were specifically. It was one of the Kabbalah episodes, but I don't remember if we were talking a little bit about Hermeticism or not. But the positive and the negative, the light and the dark, how it has to be balanced. I was like, you know what? I could. That challenged me to reconsider my viewpoint, and I agree.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is, though, is he came to the show as an intelligent, speaking correctly, not being belligerent, not cutting anybody down, just giving us good. I mean, it was just excellent rhetoric, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the back and forth that I thrive on, is that back and forth. That's why y'all hear me so much talk about having a scotch after whatever event it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thrive on. I want you to challenge me intellectually.
Yeah.
And then I might change my mind. And if I do, then it was for good reason. I'm not just going to do it willy-nilly. You're going to have to prove your point. But, that was an excellent example. That night was an excellent example of somebody just coming in with real valid reasoning behind what he was saying, to the point to where it made me rethink some things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm all about. I am willing to change my mind at any given moment if I have new information to change my mind with.
Yeah, so I feel the same way. I if you have a different viewpoint, I encourage you to share it. I might not change at that moment, right? I
may never change it, but I'll hear you out. Well, I'll debate it with you.
I may change it, but it's unlikely I'm going to change it that moment, right? The longer I hold that viewpoint, the longer it's going to take for me to reconsider it. But if you like you said, if you offer a good, well thought out viewpoint and it makes sense, and it makes more sense than my viewpoint, I'm willing to discard it and adopt a new one. But I'm not necessarily going to like see the light within 5 minutes of hearing your conversation. Share your thoughts and we'll move on. And I'll think about it.
Brother Dutton is right. He just put in our chat on Zoom that's exactly why Brother Park is one of our GOAT episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Greatest of all times. And that's exactly right. That's why he did that, because he was able. Yeah, he was number one because he touched on the things that I love most, which is good rhetoric, intelligent discussion, and just a positive vibe throughout the whole thing. You can have those differences of opinions and still have a positive vibe in the whole transaction.
What's beautiful about Brother Park is he's not a one and done guy. And what I mean by that is he came on our show, just like blasted it with like this great content. And then he went to our summit later that year.
Oh yeah.
And like he just crushed it, man. It was he like just slaughtered. Like there was no survivors. Like just obliterated like with so much information. It was outstanding. I mean, he just like it was great.
Hey Devin, glad to see you here.
What's up, Devin?
How's it going?
I'm excited this week. We're gonna be hanging out quite a bit this week. I'm going up to Austin tomorrow, but later on in the week, we're both going over to New Mexico for Masonicon, and I cannot wait to hear his presentation. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah,
And then right after that, in Dallas on the 26th, we'll be up there at the MWSA District 14 MWSA meeting. And I want to tell everybody that's listening that's up in the Dallas area, come out, man. I want to see you. I want to shake hands with you, hang out with you, and I want to have a scotch afterwards because I'll be there all night long for sure. That's not something I'll drive home from that night. It'll have to be the next morning.
Why don't you just go drive home after that, man?
Right. What's bad though is that the very next day, I have another. I have a blue cap presentation down in Corpus Christi for a 50-year Scottish Rite Brother. So, yeah, Austin, then New Mexico, then Dallas, then the very next day going to Corpus Christi for a big dinner and event. Somebody asked me this weekend, "What are you running for?" I said, "I'm not running for anything. I'm just hanging out, man. Just enjoying my masonry."
It's funny whenever you start getting out and getting seen a lot, people assume you're running for something.
Right. And they were saying, "I'm all in. I'm all in. What are you running for?" It's like, not yet. Not yet.
In time. Yeah.
Keep that enthusiasm. I like the enthusiasm.
High Watch in chat says it blows those guys showed up just to jack you. It's like small town politics. I think it happens in larger towns too, but it seems to be, I don't know what it is about small towns, man, but it seems to be like was it a small town that it happened in, Dennis?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what's crazy is that same person was pissed off about what happened in Grand Lodge this last year. They are very pissed off, saying, that's just not my Mason.
Oh,
and he doesn't represent me as a Mason, and they really just hate me.
He's not my grandmaster. Where have I heard something like that before?
Oh my gosh. Anyways, let's get off of that kick. We're in a nice, good time. Peace and harmony is prevailing in most places,
despite how hard some people try. Yes, it is prevailing.
Yes.
I agree. It's elections. It always gets kind of choppy around.
Well, we have elections on. I forgot that. So tomorrow I'll be in Austin, but the next day I'll be down in Corpus Christi because we have elections down there at Oso Naval Lodge. And, there's been politicking there, too.
Yeah.
I've already heard it.
Y'all have a beautiful lodge in there. Like, you and I drove by before. I've seen the exterior, and it's pretty, inconspicuous. You wouldn't really think much of it.
Right.
But I've seen pictures from inside the lodge room that you've taken, and, dude, that is a beautiful lodge room.
Yeah, it is. It really is. There was a member that belonged to the lodge that did all that, and he was still paid to do it, but it was only like $10,000. Whereas if you had another artist come in and do it, that would have been like a $50,000 project.
Yeah.
But that was done about 8 years ago, maybe.
Is there a finish or anything on the murals to help preserve that?
I don't know if there is, but this next year I'm proposing that we redo all the floors and stuff. So I'll probably go ahead and get with that artist and see what we can do to seal the walls as well, to make sure. Because you're right.
That's something you want for hundreds of years if possible. That's right. That's part of your lodge history now. David Lawson says, "Dennis, where did you get the book, The Oath I Took?"
Oh no, that's what I'm writing. That's
your presentation.
Yeah, that's my Masonic my Masonicon presentation at for New Mexico. But it will be in my book.
I was gonna say, will it be in your book though?
Yeah, it'll end up being in my book. But it'll have to be a dumbed down version from what I'll be talking about there at the Masonicon. Because I got to make it available, for other people to read.
Profanitized.
Yeah, Profanitize? Oh, for the profane?
Yeah.
I was thinking profanity. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll just put a cuss
Well, you
word.
already-
I'll put a cuss word in every one of those secret words. I'll put a shit or an ass or something like that. And that would be funny. Or I could write the book like they did with the Porch in the Middle Chamber. So if any of you guys are ever interested in Scottish Rite, the first 3 degrees for Scottish Rite, there's a book called The Porch in the Middle Chamber, and it's actually the ritual from way back when of the Scottish Rite first 3 degrees. But the way that you have to read it is you read one page here, and then you have to go to the back of the book for the next page, and then page by page you have to do it that way. They do it so that if you were to just read it like a book, it would make absolutely no sense, and the ritual would make absolutely no sense. But when you figure out that that's the key to reading that book, then it's pretty awesome. It gives you it's a really cool degree. We actually broke it down and studied it in Scottish Rite.
So you just gave me a great idea, because I was thinking about how to write a Masonic how-to book, and it's like there's already lots of Masonic how-to books. Make it like choose your own adventure. So if you're like, no, I'm not going to investigate this petition. Okay, turn to this page. Oh, he destroyed your lodge. Right. So
Oh my gosh. I would not read that book. Oh my gosh.
Like a Scooby-Doo alternate ending.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like those old Goosebump books where
so
you have to.
Funny.
If you do this, go to this page. If you do this, go to this page. You kind of choose your own adventure. Yeah.
My daughter was sitting there with a CD with a Harry Potter game, one of the special features of the CD the other day with the remote. And I'm thinking, man, she's going to freaking wear out my remote acting like it's a video game. And I had to make her stop. But it was one of those what ifs, you choose the path.
On Netflix?
No, it was a video. It was an actual disc.
I got you. Oh, okay. Okay, I see what you're saying. That's funny.
Yeah. I have seen, Bear Grylls or whatever his name is. He has one of those.
The survival guy?
It was either on Prime or Netflix.
I think.
And he had one to where you could choose what path you took. I died a couple of times.
I remember my kids doing that. Now that you say that, he was like stuck on the side of a cliff and he fell off or something, or he got helicoptered out because of the kids to where they're doing things. So it's like, and oddly enough, that's usually how it really goes when I take them out places. So.
One that we really like 100%. We enjoy doing that together. And Sarah is sharp. She gets down to like the top 10 people before she gets knocked out.
And what was it?
That game show called 1%. So just look it up. It's on Netflix.
I'll check it out.
It's either Netflix or Prime, but it's there. It's on one of them. It's a good show.
Interesting.
Anyway, stop talking about television. Start talking about our broadcast. What's going on in you guys' world? We've been talking about ourselves.
I was thinking about this thing, man. So me and some guys from my lodge are doing a podcast too, and we did one. We were talking before it about what we were going to talk about, and basically, do you guys feel the same way? Like, so when you became a Master Mason, the worshipful master that was the worshipful master when you became a master, is he like still like in your heart, like your worshipful master?
Yes.
Like that's the way it is for me.
He was the one that conferred my degrees. Now, the final person when I was raised, that he was somebody different, but the actual master conferred 3 degrees. That's why I conferred the degrees in my lodge when I was master of the lodge.
Yeah, it's powerful if you can do that.
Yeah. And you're right. I do remember that person. And he's still in my heart.
Yeah.
And he's actually the one who knighted me as well.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. He chose me to be the candidate during that festival and knighted me as well. So that was kind of cool.
Nice. Yeah, mine's not with us anymore, but I know what you mean. Like I don't know. Like he's your first worshipful master. He's your first time. It's always something special at the first time. So, but yeah, I remember that very well.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm just looking through the chat real quick.
Yeah, I remember. There's several things I remember that really made a big impact on me and how I do things today. First coming in the ritual, my senior deacon. Okay, guys, what are y'all laughing about?
Oh, Cody
Yes.
said it just got weird.
Yeah.
Oh, but I remember the way the ritual was done in my degree, and that's why I expect so much from people that are doing that, and that's why I appreciate people like Cody so much that are working so hard to get people on the right path, because my degrees were just freaking excellent, and I didn't realize how great they were until I saw how bad it could be. But
No,
in
I know
all
what you mean.
fairness, I mean, we've talked about that. You don't know how good something is unless you understand the bad, right? And so now I realize how great the degrees were, and I realize why they made such a big impact on me. I could feel it, that these people, it meant something to these people, and what they were doing was not just show up last minute and make somebody a Mason and go home. That they really care about what they're doing. They care about the lodge. That's St. John's 51 up in McKinney, and they're still surrounded by some of the most impactful leaders in Freemasonry, especially up in the Dallas area.
I reflect as you say that, and it was, even today, it's very evident that the people that confirm my degrees practiced.
Yeah.
I'm sure they messed up. Everybody messes up. I'm sure they did. But the thing is, they kept going, if that makes sense. And
Right.
And even
I didn't hear anyone. I don't remember hearing anyone correct anyone in any of my degrees.
Well, that's the thing. Even granted, it's been almost 20 years, but here I have an A certificate. I couldn't tell you where anybody messed up 20 years ago, because they rolled with it. They treated it like a production, and that's what's important. Like we've said this before. When you're conferring a degree, you're conferring it for this individual, not for these guys sitting around you. And so it's important to practice. It's important to know your role, but sometimes you mess up. And you just have to, it's just like a play. You roll with it. You keep going and make it work. Unless you miss like a third of the degree, then you might want to make it. But if it's like a line or a small word, just roll with it, because this guy probably is not going to know.
Well, I can tell you one of the reasons that I've gained so much respect over the past year over at Oso Lodge is not because of all of my major contributions, right? Mm-hmm. It's really just from sitting in the chairs wherever I'm needed, wherever somebody is short, they always ask me to sit in the chair. And I do it right. I sound good. I do enunciation where it should be. I pause to make emphasis on certain words and things like that. And just doing that, people could see how much I cared about the craft. And so they built this understanding of me and how much I care about what's going on, really based off of my ritual, because it matters to me, and they could get that. And now, of course, I do a lot more things, and they call on me for a lot more stuff. But from the very beginning, that's how, without saying a word directly to anybody about what I think about Masonry, they were able to tell how much I cared about Masonry because of my work. And that's how I feel about the guys that did my degrees too.
Cody says he'd like to see you confer a degree, Dennis. That'd be awesome.
When it's time for me to do a graded, I will call you down.
But
that is a goal. That is one of the goals of us at Oso Lodge, is that we're going to do a graded degree next year.
He also points out, earlier we were talking about just bringing people in, it's making a member but not a Mason. And he also says there should never be a correction in a degree. A prompt is fine when needed, but don't stop to correct a word or two. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The only time
Nothing I hate worse than hearing somebody in this back corner over here spouting off some word that really doesn't even matter if it said a this or a that. You know, it just really that just pisses me off.
No.
You'll always get one of those, death stares from me if you speak up in lodge. I'm just gonna.
Well, that's why anytime I'm
Every
going to
time.
confer a degree or something, I make sure to say, hey, this gentleman right here, this brother's going to be the one. If I need a prompt, I'll look at him. And usually I suggest that to the worshipful masters. And it's like, I don't care who your prompter is. I'm not saying you need to have me do it, but you don't want, it ruins the immersion, right? It takes away from the sanctity and the solemnity of this rite of passage when the guy conferring hesitates for 0.02 seconds longer than is acceptable to the past masters. You have 10 of them chime in, right? You don't need that. So that's why it's important, regardless of who's your prompter is. Even if you want to ask someone that doesn't know what they're doing, at least they'll prompt you wrong consistently, right? So as long as you'll have 100 people chiming in and tell you how to do it.
Well, I've always thought that the senior deacon and the master work together a lot in the degrees. And the best prompter you can have is that senior deacon, because he's really right across from you most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
He's right there with you, and he can mouth those words without saying anything, just kind of mouth it and put you back on track, because most of the time you're face to face with him in some way. So he could be one of your best prompters in your lodge if you think about it.
Yeah. And Cody points out in a graded degree, they require the prompter to be listed on the degree team, which I think is smart. I think that's smart just in general.
Well, I'm going to call you down to be my prompter.
There you go. That's
It would be a good one.
Playing chess when they're playing checkers. There you go.
That's right. That's right. I'm going to seal this deal for sure.
That way, if you make anything less than perfect, you say, well, Cody was my prompter. I don't know what to tell
Exactly. Yes. And he was chosen by Jim Rumsey.
There you go.
Jim Rumsey wanted him as his successor.
He says he'd be sure to give you the wrong word. I don't think he would do that. I don't think Cody's capable of doing the wrong word.
He's not capable of being that deceitful.
Oh, yeah. That's funny, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we got a fellow crafter practicing for at one of my lodges, and you're talking about knowing the work and everything. And I went to the practice night and just helped out, and they're like, thank you. Like, they were like genuinely grateful. It's like, I just came and told you the right words. I mean, it's not, but I think sometimes we take it for granted. Like, we work really hard on the ritual. Some people, that might not be their bag, right? They're not really as interested in the ritual, and so when they need help, they genuinely need it. And so, I mean, it's important to come and help out.
Well, I'm not going to say I'm a ritualist. I'm not. I don't have an A certificate. I don't have any certificate right now, actually, and I just do my best. And I don't know. I'm a rebel without a cause, I guess.
I think you know better than you think.
Right.
I think.
But at the same time, I don't want to shortchange the value of people with the certificate, because that's important.
Yeah.
We need everybody in our lodges, not just the rebels.
I agree. But you got two types of people with ritual. You really got three, but you got one type of people that don't think they know it, and they really do. They know it better than they think. Then you got the other type is people who make sure that you know that they know it, but then when they actually are supposed to do something, they can't do it. But then you have
oh my gosh, the guys that are mouthing in the lodge while somebody's doing something. It's like,
you're talking about like to themselves?
Where is your filter? Yes.
Yes.
Where is your filter? I don't care if you know it. I don't want the candidate to know that you know it. Shut up, please.
Well, that's the thing. They want you to know that they know it.
I know. It's so impressive. They made the proper impression upon me. Now shut the up and let's get on with it.
I mean, I have, like, silently like to myself, looking down where no
You
one
think
sees what
it's
I'm
silent.
doing. No, I don't. I mean, I'm not talking. I'm just going through it in my head. But you got some that like stop, 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 like talking
Yes.
to themselves.
Heavy whispers.
Yeah,
Like your children's whisper.
Cody says all the time. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I can imagine if Cody's there, then everybody wants them to know. Yeah, I know it. All those old past masters.
And I'll tell you, one of the worst places for people to do that is when they're turning in their work, like at the forums and stuff. Like, we know you know it. You have certificate. You don't have to like. Who are you? Like, these are all district instructors and A certificate, like certified people here. Who are you trying to impress? Like, these people know it. They've forgotten more words than you probably know. So why are you?
Do you remember that photographer, that real short guy that he's real old? He was one of the photographers for years for Grand Lodge, and he's got this real deep voice. And he traveled around with OLT a little bit. Do you remember?
I have like an image in my head, but I can't remember his name or anything. I think I know who you're talking about.
Right. Okay. So, and I don't want to mention his name, but he has a deep voice, and he does that, and he doesn't do it in whisper. He thinks he is because he's old and deaf, but he's talking in that deep voice, little body, deep voice, and you know it's him from all the way across the room. It's like, shut up, dude.
Yeah.
And he just won't.
Yeah. I don't know.
Anyways,
I'm sure they mean well.
But
But
yeah,
you're also right.
These are good brothers.
A lot of these guys are sitting there and they probably have hearing aids and things like that, and they don't really know how loud they're being. I've sat in lodge before where I'm like, what is that high-pitched noise? You ever hear that?
Yes.
It's like, what is that? What is that sound?
I was just fixing to mention.
And they got like cranked up all the way to like 100. It's like, like you hear dogs howling a block away.
Feedback, yes, feedback from the mic. Yeah.
So they could probably. I mean, they don't know. They don't realize it. And what's funny is they still don't hear you though. I mean, it's not funny, but like they got it cranked up and they still don't hear what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Daniel was talking about, getting thrown off while he was doing his work because of somebody like that. Yeah, you're right. And then on the flip side, I also get mad. I don't want anybody sitting behind the person working with the candidate when they're turning in the work. Because if they mouth anything, I feel like that's wrong. It shouldn't have happened. We should just call this thing off. Because you get those guys that think that they should be telling them the whole way. And it's like, no, man, that's not what we're doing here.
Yeah. Defeats the purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. If that person needs it that bad, he needs to go back and practice and come back when he can do it.
Yeah.
And I don't have any problem with somebody, needing to stop and come back. That I would rather them do that than get it, and I feel like they didn't deserve it.
Well, they can already turn it in sections.
I know. How easy can it be, right?
Well, it's still not easy, but I mean, when you and I did it, we had to go. It was a marathon. It wasn't. It wasn't a race. It was a marathon all the way through. And I think there's value in that. I think too many people. I know when I did it.
Bragging rights. I don't know if it's value.
I don't know if it's bragging rights. I know when I did it, I did the whole thing like we had to. And then I was like, oh, thank God I'm done. And it just brained up the whole thing. And then when Fellowcraft was over, they're like, okay, here's your work. It's like, oh my God. And I had to kind of pull it all back out. The reason I say that is if you turn it in sections, a lot of people will do the same thing. They'll brain dump. Because at this point, everything is different. Like the first section, second section, third section, EA, they're all different. And so you kind of think, you kind of see like, oh, this is the pattern. It's not the same thing. And then you go to your Fellowcraft. It's like, man, I got to dig it out from like 6 months ago.
Yep.
I'd just say if you could do the EA, you could do any of them. Just do the whole thing.
At that time, when I did that, I was so nervous, I had to close my eyes. Because the way that they did it at that time is they sat me back to my back was to the secretary, and I had to face the entire lodge. And that was too much for me. I had to close my eyes because I was so nervous. And I was able to do the questions and answers because I was so nervous I couldn't. If if anything got thrown off, then I would have been down the tubes.
I do that sometimes when I'm giving the lectures. In fact, with depending on where the projector is when they do the PowerPoint or the slides, I'll close my eyes because I don't like to. If I mess up, I might glance at the slides, but often they don't sync right with what I'm saying. And if I'm watching the slides, they're jumping around and stuff, and it messes me up. Cody says it's only 84 questions though, so I mean, what's the big deal? Just do.
Right.
I was curious how many words that was. Doing in sections has become the norm in many lodges in his area. Much sadness. Yeah. Well, the thing is, whenever
ours too.
It's easy. It's hard to raise the bar, and when you lower the bar, that sets the standard. And it's easier to lower the bar than it is to raise the bar, if that makes sense. So my point is, when you had to do the whole thing, that was the standard. You had to do the whole thing, and then you drop it. A lodge could still say, well, you could do it this way, but you're gonna have so many past masters being like, no, you can do it in sections. You can do it in sections. They're going to what's the word? They're going to subvert your attempts to hold that standard now.
Yeah. It's demeaning. It really is.
Yeah.
It's really. Go ahead.
I heard this term fast tracking. That's something that they did back in the day. They fast track them through the degrees or something. What is that? What was that? Because I never really asked them about it. But what does that even mean?
I've actually seen military that get to do all 3 degrees in one day before they're shipped off.
In Texas?
Then, yes. Oh. With Grandmaster's permission, you can do that. And they'll be shipped off, but they're expected to turn in all the work as soon as they get back. They have to start working on it, and they have like a year to turn in all the work, if I remember right. Of course, Cody's going to correct me and let me know for sure if I'm right or wrong. So, Cody, just go ahead and chime in now, and don't waste any of our time, please.
But there are some.
I've seen that. I've seen that though personally. I think it's a good thing. It's kind of like the reason why people became Masons in the Civil War, right? So that if something happens, then you really have your credentials and you're ready to go.
There are some jurisdictions where they do one-day classes, which you could also consider fast tracking. It'd almost be like a Scottish Rite class or something like that, where you like a whole bunch of lodges, or York Rite, where a whole bunch of lodges will send all their candidates, and they'll all get all 3 degrees in one day. And depending on the jurisdiction, they may waive the memory requirements or simplify. It just depends. I've read different things.
There's a state up north that did like 200 this past year, 200 candidates in one day, and everybody was all excited about that. But it's like, really, 200 in one day? How many are they doing this?
Yeah, it's really good for getting members, but not necessarily good for getting Masons. Now you will get some that'll go through it and they'll be like, well, I went through a one-day class and I'm an active Mason. It's the equivalent of throwing mud at the wall and see what sticks. And the ones that they're like, well, I was a one day. Well, you stuck and you were the right kind of person. But I would stand by if the lodge had done its due diligence and had an actual process. If they slowed down the process, right, Cody? If they slowed down that process, these guys would have got in anyway and would also still be contributing members to the fraternity. But it's the other 199 guys that got that degree that day that never came back. Where you just, what was the point of that? Other than, if you need more money, raise your dues. Don't just bring 199 guys into the fraternity, try to get money out of it.
You know what I think is, and this is my own opinion, I think that from what I've seen, people that do fast track stuff, they often tend to not follow parliamentary procedure. They don't have the appreciation for the structure that goes along with our meetings and our gatherings and stuff like that. They tend to not show as much value in that. I've noticed that with some lodges, they slow down the process, and those members, they take everything seriously. Whereas some lodges, they don't slow down the process. They get a petition in one day and they're making them a Mason the next week.
Mhm.
And, or the next month, they got to go through that process. But you know what I mean? They go through so fast that they really don't have an appreciation for the structure and the what's the word I'm looking for?
The process.
I'll think about it later. It's the upstanding nature of our fraternity. When it's too easy, it doesn't seem so proper.
Proper. Zachary Haston is in the chat. He says statistically, the jurisdictions that do 1-day classes do not gain net over time. Yeah. Oh, Caleb Betts says the landmarks. Is that maybe what you're thinking about?
Right. They don't appreciate the landmarks.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you guys to pay attention on Texas Freemasons. If we get into a conversation that puts Zach on the spot,
mm-hmm.
I guarantee you he's going to put it out on Texas Mason.
He's got the numbers.
And Yes, I loved it. Last time we were on the show, we had some statistic that we were looking for, and man, it wasn't 2 days later. Boom, it was on there, and he was strutting.
I think one time he had him right then. I think one time we were talking. He's like,
he has a lot of these stuff right there. Yeah.
I'll also say
like quick draw. He just
with numbers. Boom, 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 boom. Here's the percentiles.
Yes.
I've spoken with brothers that have done the 1-day classes, and first of all, they often didn't know there was another way of doing it, and they feel cheated.
Right.
That has been consistently across the board. They didn't know that there was any other way of doing them other than the 1-day classes, and they felt like they got cheated once they found out there's another way of doing it. Much of that data is confidential, so he can't share. Yeah, that's understandable. Yeah. But I'm just like he says, there's no real gain to it. It's a big event and everybody feels like they did something great. Like, look, we got all these new Masons, we got these new members, but they don't stick around probably based off the statistics. And
right.
And I don't know, like you might not want to stick around some of these guys, because how much due diligence can you really do if you do 200 guys from all these different lodges? Are they doing due diligence? Do they have a process to actually vet these people? You just brought 200 people to the fraternity who can all go home and vote into lodges that can all vote at their Grand Lodge, probably, depending on the jurisdiction.
Right. A lot of jurisdictions, Master Masons can vote. So that's they're growing voters right there.
Zachary has charts to show how many charts he does. Don't try to argue with him. Do you have I
love it.
I have a bar chart of my favorite pies and a pie chart of my favorite bars.
Nice.
That was how
I tell you what, that's one of the reasons why I haven't joined the Shrine yet. Though I am fixing to join. I've already committed. I've told a couple of people I'm going to do it, so I will do it. But I hadn't joined because they don't do full form anymore. They don't do hot stands anymore. So, they're robbing me of that experience that they got to have. And the reason I do things is for the experience, right? I'm not doing it for feathers. I may gather some along the way, but I'm doing it for the actual experience. I want to experience that degree so that I can understand the allegory and that goes behind what I'm a member of, right?
When I joined Nox Lux Grotto, they had it was a festival, but they conferred the actual degree, and it had been like 100 years since it had been conferred in Texas. Like there was,
right.
I don't know, like the whole, like the jurisdiction and how it's set up, but we had, I guess their equivalent of Grand Lodge officers come from Pennsylvania, fly down to see it because it had been so long since the actual degree had been conferred full form in Texas, and so that was really cool to see that.
Yep.
I'm a sucker for things like that. Like give me an actual experience, like what you're talking about. Give me an actual experience, because I hate to say, like if the the ritual isn't important enough to you, if the degrees aren't important enough to you, what else is not important enough to you? If you're gonna cut corners, what else are you gonna cut corners on?
Right.
And that's really what
Right.
it is. You're cutting corners at that point.
Yeah. So we, just so that y'all know, we do have an interdependence in our membership, and I'm glad to see you here again tonight, Jeff, brother Calger, and I'm glad you're able to hear these kind of things from guys that have been around a long time, because that way you'll know that how important it is to embrace the process
Mhm.
and enjoy the moments that you've got as you go through it, so that there becomes more value in what you're a part of as you complete these steps of masonry. So anyways, I'm glad you're here and able to hear what some of these guys are saying, because it's I say some of these guys because Justin doesn't really count. He talks a lot, but
Yeah. Yeah.
but no, but seriously, I'm glad you're here, because it's Justin's right. There's a lot of people that go through it so quick that they don't really get the value, and then later on they feel shortchanged. But
there are some people that feel as though EAs and fellowcraft shouldn't hear certain conversations. And my question is, like, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? You don't care if they hear it once they're a master, as long as they're paying dues? Is that what it is? Right? Because we're not talking about anything they're not going to figure out for themselves. So
Right.
why can't they hear the nitty gritty on some things? Because they may actually benefit from it. Because we talk about how different lodges offer different things. As an EA, if I start going to a lodge for their meetings, and all they care about is I'm just going to pick on fundraising, but say all they talk about is fundraising, but I really wanted something educational. From my personal experience, when I did not know better, I thought that's all the fraternity had to offer, and I lost interest. So for these EAs and fellowcrafts that are hearing these kind of conversations, it may open their eyes to say, hey, this is how things really can be done, or this is how things should be done. And that might keep them actually around, because their experience, they realize their mileage may vary depending on where they go and what they expect out of the fraternity.
right.
Cody Stewart says his dad went through the hot sands in the 80s. When he went through the shrine in 92, it had gone away.
Yep.
Was the hot
Well,
sands
now, go ahead.
Was the hot sands that thing where you? I don't know if I should talk about it here. I've heard
It was like hazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was, but it wasn't. Yeah.
Now, but there are some, but there's some shrines that are doing full form degrees now, and some that still just do the sign your card and give me your money and you're a Shriner.
Mhm.
I want the degree.
Yeah.
I want a full form degree. I don't want to be shortchanged. If you want me to be an active part of your fraternity and this part of the fraternity,
Mhm.
you invest in me and I'll invest right back in you.
Isn't it funny how cyclical things are? And we talk about that a lot, right? Like you had the degrees, and then they're like, "Oh, we don't need these things. We'll just do away with them." And then a new generation joined. They're like, "Oh, these have degrees. We should learn how to do those and confer them."
Yes. Yes.
And then 50
Well, that's
years,
one of the cool things about. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, in 50 years, they might do away with them again.
Right. That's one of the cool things I like about AMD is that discussing the lost degrees.
Mhm.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, those are very interesting. And the variety.
Some of them are.
Yeah,
Some
I
of them
joined
are
the
just
shrine.
kinda, Go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying I joined the shrine like a couple of months ago over here at Hella Shrine up in Garland, and they had the whole degree thing, and it was pretty
Very
cool.
nice.
Um,
Well, you
wasn't
should
like-
expect that.
Isn't that one of the bigger
Go ahead.
shrines?
Now, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, sorry.
I was saying it wasn't like the degrees at Lodge or anything, but it was different. It was just it was more fun because there was family there watching it, for people. So it was interesting.
It is interesting.
Huh. Yeah, I would expect that they would try to do things right there. You know, they have the degree team, the traveling degree team there. Um, in fact, Cody Stewart is a member of that team that goes out and does the uh, the full costume degrees for
Knights of
people around
Mecca.
Texas. Yes, Knights of Mecca.
No surprise.
Right.
So well versed.
Even though Cody won't be down this time for the ones in Corpus, which that's something. It's interesting you bring up that you have a fellow craft. We're going to have somebody out of our own lodge this year that'll be able to, go through that degree on the Lex. You know,
that's
in
cool.
other years, yeah, sometimes you just have to get somebody from the area and say, okay, come on, let's do this degree. But this time we have two different people that are going through right now, and one of them will be able to do it on the Lex, I think.
Nice.
And I'm pretty excited about that.
That's a once in a lifetime opportunity if someone gets to do that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Cody asked if they did the hot sands again, Brad.
No,
No.
no,
No
I
hot
don't know what
sands.
that is.
Were they warm
I don't really.
at all? Like
There
room
was
temperature?
no sand.
Room temperature sands?
There was no sand. We did kind of walk around like we were walking through the desert, kind of in full costume and everything.
Mhm.
I was one of the slaves. They tie your arms and everything, and you got these Egyptian like headdress things on, and there's some nobles that are like, you better straighten up, and better get this right. Don't mess up, and just messing with us, and it was kind of fun. They made it a fun time.
Cody says he was a member. He dropped it when he got on the communal work. So
Yeah, I knew that he got way too busy, and that's understandable. But they will be coming down again for the Lexington degree on September 7th in Corpus Christi. So all of you that are interested, that'll be happening. The week before, we will do all 3 degrees for the what is it, Scarlet Cord in for AMD down in Houston before the festive board that they have annually now in Houston. And so the week before we'll have all of that, and then the next weekend we'll have the degree on the Lex. It's going to be a good time.
we need to make
And then the week after that we'll have the show, oh my goodness, the symposium type deal at Roy City.
Oh yeah, which is gonna be awesome.
It'll be the Golden Triangle.
We can have Cody Stewart,
Houston, Corpus,
Robert
and then
Park,
Roy City.
David Rogers,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yeah,
some other guy. It's gonna be awesome.
It will be. I'm pretty excited.
I was gonna say we need to make like a Masonic punch card for Texas, with all the things that you need to do before your time is up on this earth, and definitely seeing a degree on the Lexington is something you need to put on that punch card before you clock
Yes.
out. You just got to do it, like visiting the Masonic Oak. What's the thing in Goliad? The oh gosh, what's that?
The Phantom Memorial.
The Phantom Memorial. Like all that just needs to go on the punch card. So that way, when you're done with this world, you can say, "Well, he said, bury me in my punch card. Say I did it all."
Right. You know, I had a brother call me yesterday. We were talking for a while, and it's the same brother that posted about the mine, the degree in the mine,
I guess
over
I saw
in
that.
Missouri.
Okay.
Remember, I told you about that they did it in that mine, and you said, I just can't help digging the hole or whatever.
Oh yeah.
You started doing all those puns, yeah, or whatever they are. But anyways, he told me that Goliad was in his top 5 lodges, and he's traveled all around the world to different lodges. He said Singapore is before Goliad, but we are within that same grasp, and Singapore is supposedly absolutely awesome because they have 3 different Grand Lodges that meet in that same lodge building.
Interesting. Very cool.
And they have a basement. They have a club, a Masonic club that they all get together in. And when you buy a drink, you don't just buy a drink. You buy the entire bottle, and they put it on the shelf with your name on it, and it's always there for you for the rest of, until it's gone.
That's cool.
Yeah.
By the way, all my mind puns were gold, if anyone's curious.
It was fool's gold. Okay. We're not going there tonight.
Wow.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, there are so many different places to go. I mean, 148, Hillcrest. There's so many different places that we ought to pay tribute to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hell, the Scottish Rite in Dallas, the Scottish Rite in San Antonio, those buildings are magnificent.
Oh, yes, they are.
If you don't spend some time in those buildings in your Masonic career, you've done yourself a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
The one in Galveston, they have some of the most ornate rooms in Texas, and they're just magnificent. And then El Paso has a huge, beautiful Scottish Rite. So it's
not even a punch card at this point.
I know, right? It's a spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of a passport, because passport's blank, but this has a page dedicated. Like, that is cool though. Yeah, there's just so much in Texas. I'm sure every state has stuff, but Texas is just so big. You got
we're so big. We have so many different. Yeah.
I mean, you got Holland Lodge. You got like all the lodges you mentioned, Goliad. Then you get Scottish Rite and talk about all the Scottish Rite. You got the Grand Lodge.
Right. And not even with just Holland Lodge, but going to one of the official visits right after the Grand Master was made a Grand Master, right?
Mm-hmm.
That first official visit goes to Holland Lodge, and it's usually the week after. And when they show up and all their DDGMs show up and are brought in properly and all that, I mean, it's a really cool event that you ought to see. Those are those kind of things that you just ought to experience once in your life. Even the York Rite outdoor degree that they're doing up in the Lubbock area every year now. I mean, that's cool. We ought to be making sure that people attend those kind of things.
I've seen images of particularly the commandery, like the guys on their horses and everything. That's just cool, man. That's just cool. I don't care. Oh, yeah. I don't care how you feel about York Rite or anything like that. That's just cool.
Right. It gives me goosebumps anyways, right?
Yeah.
Because that it's a powerful message that they're doing. And then doing it that way is just awesome as well. It's kind of like when we open up the Scottish Rite with the Piper and all that. I mean, with the Knights of St. Andrew. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a really powerful presentation that you just never forget.
Yeah, it's very cool. Well, also, I remember I went to a festive board in Waco.
Yes. At the Baylor Club.
Yes, and we walked across the bridge with the bagpiper.
Right. And then the next year it was at the Texas Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
That was awesome.
That was awesome. A lot of the museum was still open, so you could still kind of go and check it out and stuff.
Yeah, they had it open to us so that we could see all the guns and all the different Rangers and stuff like that. That was pretty awesome.
I didn't see Walker, though. I was pretty disappointed.
Oh, my gosh. Well, just turn on your TV at midnight. You'll see him in one of the infomercials.
But I could feel his eyes upon me the whole time.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you could.
It's Brad's fault. He's enabling me. Nice. Oh,
I feel like we should start breaking into some Chuck Norris jokes now.
Man.
We're trying to gain listeners and viewers. We're not trying to run them off. Come on, guys.
Man.
So
what a hater.
Yes. Yes. And I grew up with that word. So what kind of things have you been writing on discussing with other people, things like that lately? What kind of stuff has been going across your plate?
Just in general, or me?
Just to anybody, you two.
My summer has actually been very, I wouldn't say slow, it's been Masonically slow. We got some personal things we've been keeping busier than I would like to over the summer with. So I haven't been writing anything yet. I have a presentation coming up at Royce City in several weeks, and so I've been kind of rough drafting that, but I don't have anything solid that I'm working on yet. And that's my next big presentation, will be there. But other than that, I am rereading this gem right here. There is no Texas without Freemasonry. It's a fantastic book
too.
with a fantastic brother. I tell you what, I love this dude so much, Chris Williams. When we had our summit, I don't know if it was the first night or what, but we're all downstairs, and I'm like, where is my wife? And I look, and Chris had her. She loves Chris. Like she's very particular about
why
the
do you
kind of
think
person.
my wife is so bought into Freemasonry? That's her first experience was Chris and Brad. Those, man, yeah,
that's
Effer.
a dynamic
That
duo. But he was just talking to her about like Freemasonry and stuff, and like she's like, man, I really like that guy. I was like, yeah, I'm fond of him too. So yeah, that's why I'm rereading his book, just because it's so good.
I was hanging out with him yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so he's the chairman of our education committee, and we were doing the reunion yesterday.
So the best Masonic conversations I had outside of this podcast were you, me, Chris, and Brad. Just round tabling it.
Yeah, those are my favorite kind, and you're right. Every time I get together with them, I get to have those kind of conversations, and that's what makes my Masonry.
Mm-hmm. Love it. What about you? What about the rest of y'all?
I'm reading that same book that you're reading.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Texas without Freemasonry. I'm only reading it for the first time though, so I'm trying to like read it slow and hang on every word because it's pretty interesting. I liked the chapter on the circumambulation in the beginning. That was really good, and then the secrets part when he was talking about the secrets. Reminded me of when you were talking about how KFC has secrets and stuff too, and how every organization has secrets, and but the way he put it together with the profane world basically can read all about Masonry, everything that we know really, but they're not ever going to know what it truly means to be a Mason because they haven't experienced that. Exactly. And he said it's kind of like two people that fall in love dancing to a song. Well, that song has a special meaning to them now. But to me, it's just a song. I did not experience what they experienced. And I thought that was really good.
It's a really good analogy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because for one person, or like you said, a couple, like a song can have, I even have songs, like I listen to it and it unlocks very powerful memories.
Every memory in my life has a song attached to it. Every important memory I have.
Yeah. Most of mine are linked to yakety sax, but there are a few that have some really specific, some really specific and powerful songs. But it's the same concept. Like anyone can look up. Like it's there. It's not necessarily Texas work, but it's there. You can read part of it or all of it somewhere if you know where to look, I'm sure. But unless you're experiencing it, it's just words on paper. It doesn't mean anything. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So all your memories are linked to some kind of song, Dennis?
Yep. Wow. All my important ones, yeah.
All your important ones?
Music was always a big part of my life. From 5 years old, I remember moments with my brother, playing football with a pillow trying to get across the goal line, listening to the Beatles and Aerosmith and Kiss and Zeppelin. And so there are certain songs I hear and it takes me back to that moment. Same thing with every impactful moment in my childhood. And then, like when my mom passed away, man, I just buried myself in music. I hid away with a guitar and in a stereo and just didn't open up to the world for quite a long time. So and then just from there it just kept going. So every song I hear, it's funny. My daughter will be driving down the road. I'll say, "Man, she'll say, your favorite song, one of your favorite songs, their favorite." And she's right, because I have a memory attached to each one of them, and that's why our ritual is so important. Because when you go through that experience, it just kind of carves a piece in your heart, right? It carves a little piece of it into your soul.
And I would say, not just the ritual, but the things you implement during the ritual within the parameters of the Grand Lodge Law, right? So I know of lodges that employ like incense. And since your other senses are dulled, whenever you smell that later on, like your senses that you have,
it back.
It brings it back.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember that from that degree or something. Or lighting. So when you look around the lodge and you have that lighting, anytime later on you're in that degree and you see the same lighting, you're like, yeah, that takes me back. I remember that. Or the jurisdictions that allow music, right? Certain songs. Granted, you're not playing like Sharp Dressed Man or anything to a degree, but
right.
the specific music that they play during the opening and closing, and maybe during their dinners and during the degrees themselves, that the mind is weird like that. Like the mind likes not monotony, but like routine. It links things. So whenever you have a certain smell that reminds you, we have that even today. You might smell something like, oh, that reminds me of Grandma's house or something like that. Or you might walk by like a latrine and be like, that reminds me of my dad when he used to get done. But things like that remind you of specific memories. That's very powerful.
Well, think of it also like gematria, where you have the numbers for the letters, the Hebrew letters. You have the numbers associated with them, and if they equal certain numbers, they're special. They're more holy or more valuable. And then if you have two different things that have those numbers, and they're together, it's even more holy or what have you. Well, in my mind, music, the different liberal arts, I want to expand it to the liberal arts. So the different liberal arts, they all have a special mathematic sense to them, whether it's rhythm, geometry, the golden ratio, let's say. So let's think about the golden ratio with these songs and with different things. And so it creates this magical experience, and it really sticks with you because of the nature of that song. It doesn't even have to be whether it's a country song, a rock song, whatever. If it touches that golden ratio, it's going to stick with you. Because your mind automatically attracts to it because of its value. I'm
sure you know, but I'm just going to ask anyway. You know what band is associated with that pretty famously? Implementing the golden ratio in their music and things like that.
I don't know. Pink Floyd?
Tool.
That's what I was going to guess.
Tool.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I hadn't thought about them in a while.
Mm-hmm. Even if you don't know the words to the song, like the way that they play their music.
You can feel it in the rhythm.
Yeah. There's something special about that.
And the vibration.
Yes.
Yeah, the different tones, the vibrations, it's all there.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Tool is really good with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed listening
But
to that.
but but there's several songs like that though with different bands that and it really that's why I like the music loud. It's not because I want everybody to hear what I'm doing, but I want to feel that vibration. I want to feel the different energy that comes from the vibration of the songs, from the different frequencies
Yeah.
within the song.
Yeah. Yeah. Daniel says the
It,
novelty of that experience becomes a trigger for that later. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
yes, yes,
And the thing is, you may not even conscientiously be aware of, like we're like talking about Tool. Like you don't really recognize. You're not listening to it and saying, "Oh, that's the golden ratio." I can,
right,
or
right,
you're not like, "Oh, it smells like sandalwood" as you're going through your EA degree, right? But later on, you'll hear those notes and you'll be like, "That's Tool," or you might be like, "I don't know what that smell is, but it reminds me of something special. What is it? Oh yeah, the EA degree." The more senses you
I
can touch,
yeah. Go ahead.
the more powerful an experience becomes.
Well,
But
it's multi-sensory learning. We talked about that a long time ago. It's been a long time since we talked about that.
Mhm.
But that's the whole idea in multi-sensory learning. The more touches you have to your senses, the more it's going to stick with you.
yeah, and the thing is about that, what you're talking about is sure, like an educational setting, you want to hit visual, audio, all the senses, right? However, as humans, we rely so heavily on sight. When you deprive somebody of that, the other senses immediately crank up. And so that's the power. Like you can hit other parts of the brain that you wouldn't normally hit when you're doing that. And this is also common during any kind of rite of passage. They'll deprive you of your primary sense, which is seeing. Like you could say they're all primary senses. Well, your most primary of all your senses is seeing. Like you could take away your
Right.
sense of smell and you could walk. You could take away your sense of hearing, you could walk. You take away your sense of sight and you're stumbling around. You don't know what's going on. At least not at
Right.
first. You adapt, but yeah, anyway. Sorry, Dennis. I know you're about to say something.
Well, no, that's okay. But it's I was just going to tie into what you were saying. Really, I was going to say that as you started talking about it, that every sense touches a different part of your brain, and so the more sparks you can have, the more energy you can have flowing through your mind, the stronger that experience is going to stick with you, and that's true with anything.
Great.
So I fully support all that stuff. Whereas, in our jurisdiction, we can't do a lot of that stuff, even though it's in our, stuff that we're actually supposed to do, but we're not allowed to because not everybody can do it well or whatever.
Yeah, well,
I think it's
not
quite
every-
unfortunate, like because I joined wanting to get like the full experience, and to see something sort of go uh, backwards is kind of seems just counterintuitive, especially for people who are, interested in masonry these days. So just something.
well, there's
Right.
an idea that everything has to be cookie cutter, for lack of a better term. That if I get a degree in Lubbock, it has to be exactly.
Wait a second, Justin. Cody, just put your hands over your ears and close your eyes. Hear no evil, see no evil,
Yeah.
and that way you won't hear him speaking evil.
But it's this
No,
idea
go ahead.
that if I'll even say further, like if I get a degree
You're right,
in
though.
El Paso, it has to be exactly like if I got it in Texarkana, which is it's just not possible because people themselves are different, and so that's why they don't want. That's the justification. At least they say publicly. Why? And I'm not saying like the community will work. I'm just saying this is the justifications we get. Why
We know
don't have,
who it is.
Yeah, why we don't have music.
Committee on Work.
No, I don't think it's gonna be gonna work. but it's or maybe this lodge doesn't have access to incense or something. You should allow, like we already have a certain amount of variation, such as the walking lecture for the fellowcraft, and it really
That's why they didn't want to allow that.
I know they didn't.
Because they knew that would trigger other events.
But it's so popularly received when people actually do it. I have given the walking lecture, and people who have never even seen it, this is their fellowcraft degree. They've never seen another fellowcraft degree, and they come up, they say, "Thank you. That was really something special. I really enjoyed what you did." Why? What frame of reference do they have to come up and thank me for something they never experienced before? Because it makes that big of a difference. And so we should allow for some degree of variation. You can say these are the official songs that you can play, or something like that. But I know that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other conversation.
They're actually, that's a good conversation to have. They're actually there are people that are going around discussing this with different lodges, trying to help people understand why that is an important thing is to allow music and sure, we want to be responsible with it and only have certain songs available or whatever. But I guarantee you that having even my speaker system with my computer is so much more advanced, and it's a $60 speaker system, right? It's so much more advanced than the speakers that you see in any lodge that they use to speak in. Mm-hmm. Put that speaker system on a laptop, push play, and let that music roll while the degrees are happening, or in the intro and exit of lodge, and come in and out with procession and things like that. Mm-hmm. Man, talk about an impact.
Well, you'll see it implemented at different levels, right? Some lodges won't do it at all, and that should be fine. Right, some lodges will do like you're suggesting. Some lodges will have a whole system dedicated to it. Some lodges will have actual musicians, and that's fine too. But give lodges the freedom to experiment with these things. And I know experiment is kind of a dirty word, right? But it's in evolutionary terms, it's survival of the fittest, right? It's natural selection. Let the best practices adapt and overcome.
Yeah, let the best practices prevail.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's exactly how Freemasonry was formed. It wasn't something that happened in England in 1717. That was just the first Grand Lodge.
Yeah.
Masonry was way back further than that, and it happened in a bunch of different areas in different regions. And so it was definitely different. And that's why we have so many different degrees, because this region was doing a degree like this on top of the first two. They were doing this other degree, and so they adopted the third degree. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? The fourth degree, the Royal Arch degree, that one was or is that the past, Matt? I don't know.
I was actually wondering about the same thing. It's either the Mark Master or the Royal Arch where they play music, and I think it's the Royal Arch.
Yeah, and so that was done in a different region as well. It wasn't done in the same place that this other thing was done. It was done by a lodge. Just a lodge started that degree, mm-hmm. right? And it happened with all over, and that's how we have all these different degrees. It wasn't just one body creating all this stuff. It was a free-flowing organic thing that caused Freemasonry to happen.
That's why we have A&D, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's why we have the York Rite degrees. It's why we have the Scottish Rite degrees. Mm-hmm. And it may be called Scottish Rite, but it's the French Rite. It's part of the French Rite. It was developed in France. Those degrees were developed in France.
Mm-hmm. Cody Stewart says he remembers Justin Jones. He used to be a district instructor. But if you look at the Royal Arch, we say there's, looking from the English perspective, there is no degree higher than Master Mason, but in England they tie the Royal Arch to that, and so it's not considered.
That's part of it as well.
Yeah, it's like the and we know historically like the Royal Arch is the actual, basically like the other half of the master's degree, but that's where that originated from, is that Royal Arch. You're a Master Mason, but once you finish that Royal Arch, that's where you get that. Oh, and Cody also points out that not Mason degrees, as far as like lost degrees or degrees with no place or anything like that.
Yes.
And I'm not saying create new degrees or anything like that, but I'm saying allow some, I don't know.
I don't even have a problem with creating new degrees. I don't see why there has to be this one thing that we're allowed to do for the rest of our lives when that's not what we were formed on. That's not what our fraternity was formed on. So why are we held to these standards that other people want to, they want to say this is our fraternity, just like with us saying this is our lodge and this is how every lodge should be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not up to us. Every lodge has its own culture, and I don't know why these grands have gotten to this point to where everything has to be so cookie cutter and under their rule and control that we cannot be the Freemasons that represent our legacy.
Well, they still make new degrees. Have you ever had the pink apron degree?
Oh man, there's
I
a
think that's
couple of degrees that are so
OES
freaking
thing.
stupid.
What about the green bean degree? The one Zach wrote a book about.
Oh my gosh.
Fluff, I mean, for those that don't know, Fluff.
Right.
I don't remember what he actually called it, but he wrote a book on it.
Yeah, well,
but as far as esoteric degrees, yeah, I agree with you.
I'm talking about esoteric degrees. I mean, there's plenty of lessons to be learned.
Yeah. Was somebody else talking? No? Oh, yeah.
What was the turtle thing? The turtle thing.
The turtle is a drinking degree, and it's not really even in Masonry.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
But now there is a drinking degree. It's the cigar and whiskey degree or something like that. I can't remember what it's called. It's from Detroit. You have to have dispensation from them to do it in any other grand jurisdiction. But there is a degree that has to do with drinking and a cigar. I can't remember what it is.
Cody
the turtle is just a worldwide thing. It's not just in Masonry.
Is there really like a formal degree to that? Or is it just like show up and you're a turtle? Or did I get deprived again of a real degree?
It's like a degree, but it's I don't want to say because then I'm going to tell everybody.
Oh, okay.
But
are you a turtle?
But it's you bet your sweet ass I am. But it's not like a degree so much, but there is some banter to it.
Yeah.
That goes back and forth that has to happen.
Cody asked if we remember the red degrees.
Yes.
I've never
We were talking about it. We were talking about it earlier with the Porch in the Middle Chamber, that book, so that people could read it and learn it and kind of get an idea of what was represented there, with the really tying into alchemy and hermeticism. Yeah,
I'd like to go see those one day. Have you seen them?
No, in fact I was planning on going down to Etoile 1 to do that.
When are you doing that?
As soon as I stop traveling so much talking.
Etoile.
I had another email. I got another email that I got to reply to after Tuesday. Once I figure out what's going to happen at my lodge in Corpus, I've got another lodge that wants me to come speak. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Elections should be an enjoyable time when you're celebrating your leaders, and it shouldn't be a stressful time. And unfortunately, it is often just that at too many lodges. Like it, right. You should. It's a democratic process, but you should have a pretty good idea of who's going to go where, and there should not be any big surprises or upsets, in my opinion.
Right.
Like anything that was
unless there's good.
Well, even if it's good reason,
and even then, it shouldn't really be a surprise.
Exactly.
People will know that it's going to happen.
Exactly. Even if there's an upset, you should be able to know what's coming. Like it's a possibility.
Right. Well, and that's the thing in at my lodge is that we know that there's going to be a change, and we just don't know which direction it's going to be. That's going to be the interesting thing.
Yeah. All right, guys, it's 11.
Depending on how busy I am, depends on if I'll be able to go to this one that I was just asked to do this weekend.
I'm sure you'll make it.
You always do.
You always do. But it's 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. We've been doing this for 2 hours.
It's past the millennials' bedtime.
It is past the millennials' bedtime. Do y'all have any final thoughts? Brad, Devin, Jeff? Any?
I was gonna say, going back to what you were saying earlier, I was just thinking like, if we have the freedom and the ability to try new things in our lodges and enhance the experience of the candidates, the initiates, or whatnot, um, I think we should be able to uh, introduce these things, but to me, it's just kind of sad because I usually see everyone, get their panties in a bunch, and it's just unfortunate because, like, the new ideas get shut down, and it's kind of drives me away to where I gotta, search for what I'm looking for elsewhere. But I know that's a part of the process sometimes too. So I'm just, I'm early on in my journey, so um, I'm just learning how to navigate that and uh, getting into the traveling aspect of things. So, I'm just excited for that and looking forward to being able to um, just go to various lodges and learn new things and be able to apply that. That's that's the big thing for me. Just getting the value that I wanted when I first joined.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't think we should, what is the word? Be looked at a certain way if we want to search for that value elsewhere. But I think that's just sort of what I'm going through right now, and but I'm looking forward definitely to the journey for sure.
The journey's
I get it
powerful.
for sure.
Yeah.
I get it for sure. When I stopped showing up at one of my lodges, everybody was, well, they acted like I had aspirations of other things that, you know, grand aspirations, and that's why I wasn't showing up. But the reality is that I wasn't getting the masonry that I was looking for in there. And eventually they figured it out. And I told them, I flat out told them eventually, that, everybody deserves to have the experience that they want. There's too much available in masonry to tie it to one single lodge to be all the light. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I agree with having some flexibility, and I understand that some of what they're trying to prevent with these grants, and I should throw this in there. They're trying to prevent certain lodges from starting hazing candidates and really going too far with it and doing stupid things like possibly recreating the Morgan affair, right, where somebody gets shot with a gun because they're going too far outside of what the degrees really call for. And so I understand that they're trying to prevent that, but at the same time, there's a way to. I'm sure there is. We're intelligent men, right? We're solution finders. We are the explorers. That's why we joined Freemasonry, because of our curiosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our intellect allows us to create. So I'm sure we could probably find a happy medium and be a little bit more fluid with what we do, and still respect and understand that we can't take it too far.
Yeah. Brad or Jeff, y'all have anything you want to add?
And that is not my final thought, by the way.
Nope, it's too late. You already did it.
Nope.
You just covered a lot of stuff tonight, and it's just the recurring theme of what you guys have been talking about last few weeks is really, and kind of what Brother Devin is talking about is traveling to different lodges, seeing how other Masons are doing things, comparing them to what you're looking for, and then reading stuff about Masonry that excites you. That's what I've been doing, and it's paying off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying my Masonic experience. Like, it's really all I like talking about now. But it's
Right.
it is fun. It is fun, and it's changing me. So that's I've enjoyed this ride. I really have.
Thank you.
If I'm not finding the masonry that I'm not looking, if I'm not finding the masonry I'm looking for, I can just go somewhere else and find it where I, you know, just go visit or find it in a book.
I love it.
Yeah, as you meet people, it's a lot easier to find the masonry.
Most
As
definitely.
as you travel and meet people, then you start realizing where you're going to get the stuff that you're looking for, and you have it makes it a little bit easier on you.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, did you have anything? Going once, going twice,
Give them a
Nothing.
minute.
going 59, going 58, 57, 56.
Well,
There he is.
yeah, I've only been a Mason for 2 months, so I don't really have anything substantive to provide. But I really appreciate your podcast. I agree with a lot of stuff you're saying. You know, I don't know a lot about masonry.
Mhm.
I've been reading a book called Observing the Craft,
Mm.
and it's really kind of put four squares around what I'm learning.
Is that Andrew Hammer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. You know,
Yeah.
striving for perfection in all you do, that kind of thing. So I try to apply that as I'm learning my proficiencies. And everyone says it's about proficiency, not perfection. You know, I want to get as close to perfection as possible.
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed. Well, you're starting off on the right foot if you're already reading these books.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Because when I went through, I didn't do any of that. I was a different Mason when I joined, and I'm not afraid to say it. And I'm a completely different. I never thought that I would be doing what I do, traveling like I travel, trying to help other lodges like I do. I wish that I had realized, but back then the internet wasn't, there wasn't as much on the internet, or I didn't know how to find it as easily, I guess, when I joined. I don't know. I don't know.
Man, 20 years ago.
Amazon wasn't a thing back then, really, so it wasn't so easy to find books. I still got when I got a cipher,
Mhm.
it was at it wasn't Barnes and Noble. It was what's that other bookstore?
Half price books?
No, it was one of the bigger chains. I don't think it's around anymore. Anyways, I was told that I would have to go and ask somebody where it is because I wouldn't be able to see it. I wouldn't find it anywhere just looking. And they were right. I had to ask them to look it up, and they found it. The Lone Star Edition was right there. Borders.
Oh, yeah.
They-
Wow. I forgot
They
about that.
carried
place.
it. Yeah, they carried it. And that was the way that you found things, was by going to Borders and looking for it or whatever. And you didn't really see much on masonry and things like that in those bookstores, because that wasn't the current interest kind of thing.
Mhm.
But today you have these options and so a lot of people coming in the doors are a lot different than who I was when I joined.
Yeah. Well, you and I joined around the same time, I think. When did you?
Yeah.
Like, what do you got? 17 years now?
2000. No. Wow. 15.
15. But
2009.
But still, around that point, I think I'm at 18 years or so. I would say 20, but it's closer to 18. But
Right.
yeah, man. I mean, like you said, this did not happen. This did not exist. This was not a thing. I mean, Texas Freemasonry on the forum, that wasn't really a thing at that point. If you Googled online, you had nothing. There was nothing. It's just some forums, random forums like Texas Freemasonry or something, or Masons of Texas or whatever that forum used to be. There was nothing at all. And that's why I gave credit to those few lighthouses that were out there, that you could find them online, like Brother Nagy. He had his website and his information. I mean, it was like a breath of fresh air. There was nothing like this. So,
Right.
I mean, that's why we created this, was to be sure that nobody. Granted, there's a whole lot of stuff now, but it was still, the point was nobody should have to do without the light that they are promised. And that's why Masonic improvement exists. That was not my final thought. I'll go to it because my final thoughts are pretty short and sweet. First of all, if you enjoyed this, please be sure to like and subscribe. If you got any kind of value out of this, we do this every week. So best way to keep up with us is like and subscribe. But I'll also say,
and if you actually want to comment, then you can always become a member and be on screen with us and talk through these things.
Yes. So you saved me the trouble of saying that just now, but yes, you could do that too. You could become a member, join the inner circle.
Well, you were dragging it out so long.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Other than that, I'll also point out, like, I see why, to a certain extent, why uniformity is somewhat desirable, because you have a committee that their intent is to be sure that, like, this is a standard. So when you have like a whole lot of variation, or when they're speaking entirely different, like, it'd be great to have lodges that do everything in Spanish, but there's a reason. I understand why. Like, you have to be sure your committee or work member understands Spanish, and then there's a whole it convolutes things. I understand this, but there's still value in being able to do this, and I don't know the answer on how to approach it, but I know that I know there's other jurisdictions that do this, that have, like you were talking about, what, Singapore? They have like 3 different Grand Lodges.
Yeah.
And you got so many countries that have multiple different languages. Not just, I mean, we have that here in Texas, but you have countries where they have to work in multiple different languages. But I'm not suggesting like we need to have anything. That's not what I was really talking about. I don't disagree with it, but that's not really kind of the drum I was beating. I'm saying we should be allowed to have, and granted, I know there's a process. I'm not just trying to be a rebel here, but I'm saying down the road we should be allowed to have like music and things like this without people feeling as though we're somehow upturning the apple cart and disrupting the uniformity of our work or anything like that. It's the same thing as the walking lecture. Allow some variation. These people are still getting degrees, and just let the process play out. Let the natural selection work itself out. If it turns out that nobody in Texas appreciates music during their degree, then I'm sure lodges they'll stop doing that. If they're doing music and all the candidates are like, I really hated that music, it's very distracting, let's not do that, they'll stop it, right? Or if they're like, hey, that music really added like a whole new level to this, I really enjoyed this, they'll continue to do that, just like the walking lecture. Like, hey, I really enjoyed that. That really made this something special for me. The same thing with incense. Granted, it's kind of a gray area, and I know there's some lodges that do this. But just like the incense, there's no reason why you can't implement that. And if people are like, oh, that really messed with my allergies, I hated that, and you consistently get that, then okay, maybe we need to reevaluate. But if they're like, hey, I really, that what was that smell? That really made everything really feel unique. Go from there. It's all about feedback. This should also be about feedback loops and continuous improvement. That Ouroboros that's eating its own tail that we have in our emblem, that's what it represents to me with Masonic improvement. The snake is constantly being reborn. It's reinventing itself. It's doing away with the old and creating something new, and that's what we should be willing to do personally in our own lives, but also in our lodges and as a jurisdiction. That's all I got.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'll stop.
Okay. Well, I will push that envelope on we should be able to have a little bit of an organic nature to our lodges as well, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in all of our lodges or whatever, but we should be able to have these specialty lodges. You know, we already have Tranquility Lodge. We have the Lodge of Research. They've allowed the Sword of Bunker Hill in our fraternity now, and you know, we have these other different systems that are allowed. If somebody comes up with a cool ritual or something and wants to form another type of lodge or whatever, why not let them do that? Why is that? Why is it so hard to allow that to happen? If nobody likes it, nobody's going to join, and if that happens, it's naturally going to just die. So why does it matter? Why do we need to stifle the creativity and the exploration of our lodges?
Mhm.
I mean, hell, we can't do any of the Scottish Rite first 3 degrees, and those are established degrees, and we cannot perform them without dispensation and saying that it's a likeness. It's not an actual degree. It's just a representation of that degree. That's the only way we can do it. And we get hundreds of people that show up for it whenever it happens. Whenever one of the Grand Lodge officers decide to allow it to happen, we get hundreds of people to show up for these things. So why not make it available on the local level? Why not? Why doesn't our Scottish Rite, if the Blue Lodge doesn't want to allow it and their lodge is fine, but why are they holding the Scottish Rite hostage and saying they can't do it to help educate their members on the degrees? A lot of people don't realize that, but that's why the Scottish Rite doesn't do that. That's why we don't talk about those degrees in the Scottish Rite, because we're held by contract, by law with Grand Lodge, that we're not going to do it. Why are we not doing that? Why are we not allowing practices that don't hurt people? It just gives them a different experience. I just don't get it sometimes. I think that we could be a little bit more liberal with our liberal arts and be a little bit more fluid in enhancing the cultures of our own lodges in our own areas. And if we're not getting that, then allow us to form a specialty lodge in our area that can do those things.
Mm-hmm.
We do have lodges like Merit Lodge, Mercury Lodge. There's another lodge that has just started up recently that's a lot like that. That's a once a quarter lodge that has a different format to the way they do business and stuff. But why not allow specialty lodges that like a football lodge or soccer lodge or whatever, people with same interests, and then let them adjust the ritual just a little bit to enhance those different interests, to kind of touch into those different interests. I mean, that would be kind of cool, being able to have a football degree for your football lodge. And I'm not a football player. I'm just saying, just have some kind of a different, kind of like AMD does. Each council has their own degree that they perform on their members. Why not allow that in another instance, outside of AMD?
Then make traveling very interesting.
Yeah.
Not that it already isn't, right? Because you never know what you're going to see, but...
Right. But, why are we stifling ourselves? If you want to know why people leave, it's because they feel like they're not getting the value that they're looking for. So if you have a bunch of like-minded brothers that want to go all in with a like-minded lodge, then let it happen. Let it evolve. Let's stop stifling that human connection. Because in my opinion, that's what we're doing. We're stifling those types of things from happening. We're stifling human connection, because people gravitate to and really get to know people that have that are like-minded, have like thoughts, and they grow stronger bonds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why we're all here on this show, because every one of y'all enjoy the show. You enjoy what we talk about. We're all pretty much like-minded. We're not same-minded. We're not exactly the same. We have our different opinions, but we're like-minded, and we all get along. That's why we have such a big following on our show.
Mm-hmm.
We have close to 15,000 subscribers now, and that's a big deal. That means there's close to 15,000 people who like a lot of what we talk about. So think about that. instead of it being online or what have you, just think about the gravity that can pull in a region if you have this specialty lodge that, well, you have the one in Houston that's the rodeo lodge, right? Isn't that what it's called? Something like that?
In Houston?
Yeah, there's something like a rodeo lodge or whatever.
I thought there was one in Dallas, like on the stockyards. Isn't that kind of like a rodeo lodge or something?
Stockyards is Fort Worth. The
Shows how much I know about that kind of stuff.
but Houston, I'm almost positive Houston has a cowboy lodge, and yeah, it's like the same thing. It's like the same thing. So you have that. That's the culture in that region, and you have all these like-minded brothers that gravitate to it, and they support it, and they keep it going, even when all statistics say that it should fail. It doesn't, because they're like-minded and they gravitate towards each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think that can happen in a lot more ways. We have brothers that are very heavy into Hermeticism and love Kabbalah and love the mystery schools. Why not allow a mystery school lodge that just really digs into all that kind of stuff and even tries to bring in some of those old degrees and stuff that are missing in today's lodges. That I don't know. I mean, I may be talking out my butt right now, but I think that flexibility should be a little more common. We shouldn't be quite so rigid in today's world. If we want quality people, then we need to make sure that we have quality lodges to support those people.
I think you hit the nail on the head, not just with this, but a little bit ago when we were talking about look at what successful lodges are doing and try to emulate that. Apply it to jurisdictions also.
Right.
I agree. I love it. You're so wise.
Anyways, especially when Texas is so big, we have so many different cultures, so many different, lifestyles in Texas. That's why I love to travel in Texas, because everywhere you go, it's something different. It's a box of chocolates. It really is. I mean, you can see the very best and the very worst within a couple of miles of each other. And within 100 miles, you'll see the very best and worst again in other places.
Yeah.
But then you see it all in a different style culture too. I mean, I've seen the very best and very worst in the most high class type lodges, and I've seen the very best and very worst in the most dressed down type lodges as well. You see it all when you travel in Texas because we're so big.
I agree.
But I think we ought to be more flexible because of it. I don't think we need to split up the jurisdiction, but I think we ought to be a little more flexible because we are so different in so many different areas. And I think we ought to be able to find enjoyment where we are instead of having to travel, 500 miles to get it. For some people. For me, I just like to travel. I just dig it. But anyways, so final thought of the day, we ought to be flexible. And in that, we need to focus in on the heart and soul of our members. And make sure that we're being as valuable to them as they are to us. And I don't know, man. Strive to do your best in practice. Just like Brother Calder said, it's one thing to be proficient, it's another thing to be excellent. And we should strive for the best in all of our ways. And that's the whole reason I say not to stifle the creativity, because that stifles excellence.
Mm-hmm.
You find excellence in creativity. And that's the only reason, not to go off on a crazy tangent and cause hazing and shit like that. Just to allow for creativity. And it should start with the small stuff like the music and stuff like that in the lodges. incense, the being able to walk in and out with procession, best in practice practices. It should be a lot easier to get that done. And I think that's something we should strive for.
I agree. Very well said.
But otherwise, happy Father's Day, everybody.
Happy Father's Day. Well, for
Happy
35
Father's
more
Day
minutes.
to all you mother effers.
Wow.
Well, that's what makes you a father.
I look at it more like a collaboration.
I just wanted to have fun with it. I was thinking about that I was thinking about that earlier. I was thinking, man, we're all just a bunch of mother. Well, see,
Wow.
you get flexibility. You got to be
See
flexible.
what happens when we do this after 11? See how it just goes downhill?
Man, but we're gonna get the most hits from that.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
But anyways, don't forget we do have the Goats of Freemasonry out there. Subscribe, like, follow, whatever, and keep it between the points, brothers. We love you.
Let it, my
Thanks for
bros.
joining us.